Hey everybody, Jeannie Andreessen here. I hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday. Today we are talking all about client boundaries, and we are talking about how to set client boundaries that your clients will actually follow. If you are new to me, my name is Jeannie, and I am a life and business coach to interior designers. I help interior designers build the confidence, the skills, the processes necessary to be fulfilled in their business and make the money that they deserve. Like I said, today we're talking all about boundaries. I'm very excited about this. This is one topic that comes up a ton with my clients. And it actually can be the biggest blessing to your business and to your life. Or if done incorrectly, it feels like an absolute impossible largest mountain that you have to climb. And so I hope by the end of today, by the end of these next 20 to 30 minutes, that you feel that you have a clear understanding of kind of what's going on as to why your boundaries aren't feeling so seamless right now, and that you feel motivated to be able to have boundaries that feel good to you and that your clients do follow. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What I actually, before I even get started, I'm like, if you're joining me live or if you hop on in a little bit, if you can just share with me, like, where is your biggest pain point right now in regards to client boundaries? Is it that you don't understand how to set them, that your clients don't follow them, you don't know what yours are? Please drop it in the comments and I will circle back and read through them, and be able to help you if what I share with you today may not apply directly. I will absolutely be able to help you, but I would just love to hear from you. Like, where do you currently feel stuck on this? So think through that as I am talking, and feel free to drop it in the chat if something comes to mind for you. So, again, why did I choose this topic? Because this comes up all the time with my clients, and because I absolutely love boundaries. I love them, I love setting them, and I do feel that with my experience, both in my current business, my former business, that I have done all of the things incorrectly to get to a place where I am pretty good at this. I'm pretty good at knowing, what my boundaries are, being able to implement them well, communicate them effectively, knowing how to communicate them and exactly where, and holding to them if I notice a client that is kind of falling out of line with them. So that is why we're talking about this today. Yet at the same time, it feels like it is Mount Everest in terms of how to set and get clients to follow. And here's the thing, your business is different than my business. I'm always, always very clear about that. However, however, both businesses deserve really good and clean boundaries. Both businesses have to do with people, have to do with our clients, and both businesses include serving our clients really, really well and at the highest level. But your business is a little bit in a different way. I was going to say it's a little bit more personal than my business. My business is very personal because every single conversation I'm having with a client is personal. Every conversation I'm having with the client has to do with where they are right now in business, where they're struggling, and how to be able to tackle these challenges one at a time. So that is very personal. Now, your business is personal because you are walking into your clients' homes. You are becoming a part of their life. You are meeting their family. A lot of the times, you are creating for themselves and for their family. So, your business is personal for a different reason. Your business is also very personal because you often are handling conversations with two people at once that may have differing opinions. You're the husband, wife, or the spouses, and that is personal in itself. So there is a point where we need to set boundaries, or else our clients are going to feel as though we are their best friends, or we are available all the time, all around the clock, to solve every single need that they have. So here's what I want to kick off with is why setting boundaries is important. Why is this something that you need to have? Because I think sometimes we can think that we're doing okay without having certain boundaries in place. And then at some point, we realize that is just not the case. So, why setting boundaries is important? It is a form of self care. And I want you to see it as that. Setting boundaries is a form of self care, it is a form of well being, and it is also a form of knowing who you are. I think way back when I was in my, I say way back, I'm like, God, that makes me feel so old, but way back when I was in my teens and early 20s, and I think about that time and I think about how I thought I knew who I was, yet at the same time, there are many different instances where I felt very lost or confused or just not like my fullest best self. And I believe that that occurred because I didn't actually know who I am, know what my boundaries were, and know really what was best for me in the life that I wanted to live and who I wanted to become. It's very, very challenging when you're younger because you have all of these outside influences. You have friends, you have family, you have everybody else telling you exactly who you are and what you should be doing. And then there comes a point in your life where you realize that you know yourself better than them. And because of that, you've got to really start getting clear on who you are, what you want, and being able to achieve that, put yourself out there to achieve those things and not worry so much about who that's going to be disappointing in the meantime. So boundaries are really a form of identity. And I think that's a really important thing to mention here because a lot of times we try to form boundaries based on what we see other people doing in their businesses. And we try to take those and apply it to our business, but it just might not be the same. We may not feel the same way that somebody else does about different parts of our business where we might be setting boundaries. And so I want to offer that too because I think that that does cause some confusion. So when you see somebody else, when you have a design peer of yours who isn't taking meetings after 5 p.m., and you say, I want that to be my boundary too. I don't want to take meetings after 5 p.m. And then you have somebody that comes your way and says, hey, I'm available to meet at 6 o'clock on Tuesday. You have this identity crisis of, oh, wait, but I don't want to take a meeting after 5. They don't take a meeting after 5. So does that mean that I shouldn't take a meeting after 5? But I want to take this meeting. And so you have this back and forth that really actually can drain you very much. And when you accept that meeting at 6 p.m., you are resentful that you accepted it, or you're beating yourself up that you accepted it because you want to have better boundaries. Does any of this sound familiar to you? I share this example with you because you may or may not actually have a boundary about not taking a meeting after 5 p.m. I will tell you, you will find your best boundaries by looking inward, by truly looking inward and asking yourself what it is that you want, what you want to set, how it's in your best interest and how it's in your client's best interests. And then being able to implement them and communicate them effectively as needed. So I want to make sure I'm pulling back. So going back to why setting boundaries are important, they really are a form of self-care, they're a form of well-being, they're a form of identity. Again, let's use another quick example. I want to use a quick self-care example. If you have zero boundaries about when your clients contact you and when you communicate with them, you are going to be on vacation and sitting on a beach with your friends, and you will get a phone call from a client and you will answer it. That is what it looks like to not have a boundary around communication with your clients and when you're available. And I want you to notice how even just the example of that doesn't feel good or doesn't feel right. Think about if you're with your family, not your friends, but like your husband, your children, and you're taking a client's phone call and how that doesn't feel good or doesn't feel right. So that's what we want to avoid. I want to make sure that you are at a place where you understand that setting boundaries is absolutely a form of self-care, and that you understand that everybody has different boundaries. You can get ideas of what kind of boundaries that you want to have in your business by seeing what how other people operate in their business, but every single person's boundaries are different. They are different. They are all based on what they need. They are all based on what that specific person needs in order to be their best self in their life and in their business, their personal life and in their business. So before I tell you, like, here's how to have boundaries that your clients actually follow, let's talk about why your clients aren't currently following your boundaries. Because if you're watching this, that's really what you are telling me. If you're watching this, if you were interested in watching this and the whole purpose is to learn how to get client or how to have boundaries that your clients actually follow, then that tells me that you probably have a few clients, or this is a chronic problem, that do not follow your boundaries. So let's talk about that, because in order to get to a place of being able to solution, we have to figure out the root cause. We have to figure out what is going on here. So the first thing that I want to cover here, and I hope you have a pen and paper. I hope you have a pen and paper. I feel like I really run through a lot. I really kind of cover a lot in my lives, and this is not going to be different than that. I have kind of a few things to cover here. So first and foremost, why aren't your clients currently following your boundaries? I want to offer to you that you may have a misunderstanding of what a boundary really is. So what we often think a boundary is setting a certain expectation or limit. And when somebody is not following it, they are crossing our boundaries, and we have every right to be upset with them. That is oftentimes what we think a boundary is. That may be what you think a boundary is. That sounds right, right? Here's what an actual boundary is. A boundary is, I found this online and I liked it, but I'm going to kind of elaborate on it. But a boundary is a personal guideline that you set to help maintain healthy habits and relationships. A personal guideline. A common misconception is a boundary is about controlling somebody else's behavior. The truth is, a boundary is communicating a line in the sand that when crossed, you change your behavior. So here are some examples. An example of what you may think a boundary is communicating to your client, do not text me after 5 p.m. After 5 p.m., I am off work. I am not taking client calls. I am not taking client meetings. Don't call or text me after 5 p.m. And then what happens? Your client calls you at 6 p.m. and you get mad at them. An actual boundary is saying that you do not take calls or texts after 5 p.m. And a client calls you at 6 p.m. and you don't take it, nor do you feel any obligation at all to take it. Do you see the difference? One of them is you are putting on somebody else to change their behavior. You are telling somebody else, don't call or text me after 5 p.m. And then they do, and you take that call, or even if you don't, but you take that call, let's say, and you're upset with them because you told them that you don't take calls or texts after 5 p.m. Why would they reach out to me at this time? The boundary truly is communicating, hey, I don't work after 5 p.m. I don't take any client conversations after 5 p.m. After 5 p.m., I am all in with my family. If you call, you text, you're not going to hear back from me until 9 a.m. the next day. The boundary is holding to that. Let me give you another example that I hear that is commonly misunderstood. Is somebody will say, I have, my client doesn't pay on time. My client doesn't pay on time. I have a boundary that my clients pay on time. Yet I have this one client where they haven't paid their invoice in over a month. And now I'm getting ready to send the next invoice from the work this last month, and they haven't paid that other one. So you think your boundary is that your clients pay on time, but an actual boundary is that you won't work for free. That if your client doesn't pay the invoice, or until your client pays their invoice, you will not be working for them. That is an actual boundary. The boundary is being able to define what are the processes you have in place that allow you to be your best self in work and in life, and give your best self to your clients who respect it. That is what a boundary is. So saying, I will not work for free, I will send you an invoice at the end of every month for the hours worked, and I will give you 7 days to pay that invoice, and until that invoice is paid, I will not do more work, creates a line in the sand of where your behavior stops if they were to cross that boundary. I hope that alone kind of blows your mind. I really, really hope so. Because then my next question is, did that give you a different perspective of what a real boundary is, and why potentially our clients aren't following your boundaries? A lot of times we think it's on them to follow our boundaries, where it's really on us to enforce our boundaries. Here's another quick example. A client of mine, so when my clients work with me in private coaching, they get, and in business school for designers, they get Voxer access to me. So that's kind of a walkie-talkie app. It's an app that is separate from text messages, but they're able to message me on it. And so that is our only form of communication, is all via Voxer. Everything is streamlined in there. So I had a client yesterday say, I was going to Voxer you a few times last week, but I was laying in bed. It was late at night. I didn't want to bother you. And I said, listen, you can message me whenever you want. I don't care if it's, 10 o'clock at night. Go ahead and send me a message in Voxer. Don't text me, but send me a message in Voxer. It is on me to decide when I'm listening to that. So if you want to send me a message at 10 p.m., I feel zero obligation to listen to it at 10 p.m. I will listen to it at 8, 9 a.m. the next morning, whenever my day is getting started. Actually, I tell them within 24 to 48 hours. Typically, I'm within 24 hours. So I don't even feel obligation to listen to it until, you could even say 10 p.m. the next evening. But I want to give you that example so that you understand what my boundary is, that I'm not going to respond to text. I'm not going to feel any obligation to respond to any Voxer messages outside of 9 to 5 p.m. So I hope that's helpful, because I think just defining that allows you to get a sense for why your clients might not be following your boundaries, because it's less about them following your boundaries and more about you creating certain opportunities for you to adhere to your boundaries. We are going to communicate boundaries. We're going to come back to that one, but I just want to offer that to you as perspective. There might be an opportunity there for you to be enforcing your boundaries, and that is on you. All right, another reason why your clients might not be following your boundaries is because you don't know what yours are. We talked a little bit about that already, but I will tell you that it causes a lot of confusion for you and for your client if you have not defined what your boundaries are. You cannot assume that your clients know when to call you, when to text you, if to call you, if to email you. You cannot assume your clients know what your schedule is, when your hours are. You cannot assume that your clients know when you will meet them and where you will meet them. When you take meetings, when you don't take meetings. You can't assume that. You have to define what yours are and be able to communicate them effectively. But if you don't know what your own boundaries are, how will your clients be able to know how to follow them? Some boundaries that I have in my business, let's talk a little bit about this, which I actually did not prepare or think through this, but I'm like, just off the top of my head, what are some of my boundaries? I don't work for free. My clients pay up front. If my clients, and I get my clients on my calendar, so I'll even schedule their sessions, send an invoice, and I will say to them, if this invoice is not paid by, let's say, the morning of when our session is supposed to be, I will reschedule our session. I do not show up for that session. I reschedule it if something is unpaid. That never happens because I attract clients who pay their invoices and I articulate these things, these processes well. Yes, boundaries and processes, very, very similar. So let me kind of offer that to you. Very, very similar. So that is one. Another one is that I don't respond to Voxer messages outside of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I will tell you, sometimes I do, but that is a choice of my own. Sometimes I am still working at 5:30 or 6. I didn't get a chance to look at my Voxers for the day, and I do take that opportunity in the evening to respond to my clients. That's on me. That's by choice. That's not because I feel that I have to. What I communicate to my clients is to never expect a response from me between 9 and 5 or outside of 9 to 5. Another one is that my clients, they don't call me for anything. They just don't need to. There's no reason for it. They have access to me via Voxer. Sometimes I'll get a text from them if it's a little bit different than what we typically coach on, or if it's like, hey, I saw this thing and I thought of you, or I don't know, just various things. I'll get a couple texts from them, but it's never anything that becomes a full-blown conversation, like ever. I think that's helpful. So those are a few that I have in my business. Even for like my hours and when I meet with clients, I meet with clients on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays primarily. If a client needs to reschedule, I really am trying to reschedule them within those 3 days. Outside of that, it's up to me if I want to reschedule them for a Wednesday or a Friday, but it's not something I am ever offering first because my main days for coaching are Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I hope that's helpful. Okay. Last but not least, why your clients aren't following your boundaries: because you're not communicating them effectively. You have to communicate them, and there is an art to this. This is not something where in the first phone call that you have with your client, you are setting boundaries. It's just like in a discovery call, you're not like, well, let me walk you through all of my boundaries. No, there are maybe 10 different parts in your onboarding process where we are trickling out, setting, boundaries here and there in various forms. I mean, there's even in the intake form, I encourage you to be kind of like roughly setting boundaries and doing so by communicating what your hours are and letting your clients know that majority of meetings will be happening during that time. That is in your intake form. And then there's, the consultation and maybe communicating something else. And then there's the proposal, then there's the contract, and then there's the follow-up welcome email. And in the welcome email, we are setting some clear boundaries. But it really, when we're not communicating what our boundaries are in a way that makes sense, that allows our clients to just understand and follow along as best as they can, it becomes really hard to expect our clients to follow along and understand them. They've got to be communicated effectively. So let's talk about how to set boundaries our clients will listen to. I want to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes because we're currently at about 25 minutes. So I want to make sure that I wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. If you have any questions on this, please do not hesitate to send me a DM and we could talk through it further. But number one, I'm going to run through this pretty quick because we've you'd be surprised, kind of covered a lot already. So number one is to find what yours are. You cannot have clients that follow your boundaries if you don't even know exactly what your boundaries are. You just cannot. If you currently have very blurred boundaries and you don't know what they are, the best way to find what your boundaries are is by doing some self-reflection of when you felt that your energy was the most sucked or when you were most taken advantage of. Like, at what points were you showing up to things very resentfully, answering phone calls with frustration, really frustrated or upset with your clients? Why? When you note, it's kind of like where that pain point is. When you follow the pain, you will find a boundary. When you follow the pain, you will find what that boundary is that you need to set. So get a clear sense of what your boundaries are. And I do recommend if this is all new to you and you currently have zero boundaries or processes in place or communicated, define 3 of them. Define your hours, define how you want to be paid, and define communication. Those are usually kind of the top 3, I feel like. Your hours, when you want to be paid, and how you want to be paid, and communication guidelines. Define those 3, and that would be a huge win for you. Step number 2 is to create a decision, like actually have a decision made. Not create a decision, make a decision. Have a decision made that these are your boundaries, that these are what they are, and that they are in everybody's best interests. Go through some examples, come up with some examples in your mind of when a client might fall outside of them and how you would respond. So here is another really good example. You have a boundary that all client communication is happening via email, and then your client texts you. They text you with something important that really should be via email. So if you have made this decision of all of this happens via email, how are we going to guide our client back to following our boundaries? By replying to your client, "Hey, Mrs. Client, thanks for sending this. Mind sending it to me via email? That is where I keep track of everything." Boom. It's that simple. When a client calls you after 6 p.m., you're not answering. You may email them at 9 a.m. or call them back at 9 a.m., but you may email them at 9 a.m. and say, "Hey, I noticed that you called me yesterday at 6 p.m. Let me know if you need to hop on a call today. I'm available between 2 and 3. Don't overthink it. It's that simple. So make a decision that you are going to stick to these. Step number 3, learn how and where to communicate them effectively. Your clients, your prospective clients, don't need to know your communication boundaries. They don't need to adhere to them, essentially, in the discovery call phase. They don't. Now, if your prospective client sends you a text, you may say, "Hey, would you mind emailing me?" Everything is communicated, via email, and you can start training them effectively. But it's really after they start with you that we are sending like a boom, boom, boom welcome email that clearly establishes your boundaries so that your clients understand exactly what they are at a time when it's very relevant. And you're going to call it, like, what do we call it in my VIP day? Maybe communication protocol or how to work with me well or something like that. I can't really remember off the top of my head. But in my VIP day, in a welcome email, that is where really we're communicating a lot of these boundaries. So many times we're trying to communicate them up front, not necessary. What's necessary is to help your clients kind of fall in line with them without needing to communicate them too hard. And then once they're onboarded, we're sending this welcome email that says, "Hey, here are best practices for working with us." I'm pretty sure it's best practices. So there you go. And then last but not least, you're going to follow them. And you are going to help your clients follow them by reinforcing them. So often we think that this is so challenging, so hard, so confusing, when in fact the confusing part is that we have not made a decision as to what our boundaries are, or we are not the ones communicating them. So how can we have our clients follow something when we have not made decisions? If you make a decision on something, it means that you are following it. Otherwise, you did not make a decision. So we need to decide what our boundaries are. And it's up to us to communicate them effectively in a way that allow our clients to follow them. And it's up to us to hold to them. When somebody may get confused, may forget, or may just innocently send you a text message a text message at 8 p.m., it's up to us to not reply to that. Couple things as we wrap up. Number one, I love the Voxer app. I don't get paid to promote the Voxer app, but the reason why I love Voxer is because it allows me to streamline my messages. So my client messages all through Voxer. So when I go at 6, 7 p.m. to text my husband, if he's not here, I go to my text messages and I'm not seeing 100 messages from clients because those are in a separate app. So I share that with you as a way to streamline and a way to keep your sanity. So Voxer app is one kind of new idea for you potentially. Number two, VIP days, my VIP process days. We are all in on client onboarding on my VIP processes days. We cover a lot around boundaries and articulating and setting boundaries well. We cover a lot about the sales process and how to sell our clients from the moment that they inquire with us. If your onboarding process isn't making everything easier, it's probably making everything worse. Head to the link in my bio to learn more about my VIP process days. They are a game changer in your business. In 3.5 or 4 hours together, game changer in your business. You will come out ahead times 100 with my VIP days. So just head to the link in my bio to learn more about them. Last but not least, like I feel like I mentioned this last week, but I've now opened my calendar to clarity calls. You can now book with me one-on-one, one conversation, one coaching session where you can get clarity in your business. Whether you want to set boundaries, you want to know how to adhere to your boundaries, your clients aren't following your boundaries and you don't know how to communicate it, you don't know how to level set with them and reset with them, head to the link in my bio and book a clarity session. And I promise you, you will feel completely differently by the end of that session. We will get you the clarity you're looking for. I really hope that this live was helpful for you. If it was, please throw me a like. And if it was, please share it with a friend. If you have a design peer who the two of you are both feeling the same ways and have the same pain points in business, please send this over to them. And I hope that it helps them too. That's what I have for you today, friends. Any questions, send me a DM. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next week. Take care.